Welcome to Behave Yourself, the podcast that aims to bring the science of human behavior and how you can apply it to your own life and become the happiest, healthiest, and most successful version of you.
We're two behaviour analysts with backgrounds in personal training and nutrition who've struggled in the past with confidence, weight loss, breaking promises to ourselves, and constantly trying the quick fixes.
We bring the science and show you how to apply it confidently and consistently towards your own goals and how to actually create a lifestyle change.
Behaviour analysis is the science of human behaviour, and we all engage in behaviours that either move us towards the direction of our goals or hold us back from living the life we desire.
I'm one of your hosts, Emily McRae.
And I'm your other host, Jo Wesley. Hello.
Hello.
How you doing?
I'm doing well. How are you?
I'm good, thank you. How's your week been? Have you been behaving yourself?
I have been behaving myself. One of my biggest things that has been successful this week is working out. My husband and I actually just started a workout program together, kind of a 4-week plan. So I've been staying on track and stretching afterwards. So that's always a struggle of mine. So I've been behaving myself very well. How about yourself?
Yes, I've been behaving myself really well. You'll probably be pleased to hear I can now stop saying that I'm still in a fat loss phase. I have reached the lower end of my bracket. I can now go back up to maintenance and hurrah, start eating peanut butter again. So yes, peanut butter. So as I said before, I have a bracket of weights that I like to sit between, and I'd hit our upper end. I'm now back at the lower end after a month of being on slightly fewer calories. So I've obviously been behaving myself well, which is good.
Good. That's awesome to hear.
My journaling behaviors have maybe not been quite so well behaved. And I'm starting to now reconsider whether it could be something I come back to as and when needed. And so I could do it once or twice a week on the regular, but when I'm feeling particularly anxious, I could come back to it more. There was a behavior that you were saying that you like to talk it out more, you like to talk to people, and I'm sure you talk to people more when you're feeling stressed or anxious. Maybe I could use the same with journaling, because I'm still fighting it and I don't want to be fighting myself over journaling every week or every day. So yeah, not so well behaved with the journaling.
I wonder if that kind of leads into our topic today of defining our goals, but then is it something that's valuable for you right now, or is it something that maybe in the future it'll be more valuable, or you now have the tools to know how it affects you and you can use that variably versus every single day when maybe you don't necessarily need it.
I wish I thought of that link like it was intentional. It really wasn't.
It's what we're here for.
Perfect.
2 brains.
Good. So today's podcast is about how to set a goal, how to define your goals, especially if you don't particularly know where you're going. Some people might have a very clear idea of what they want to do or don't want to do, whereas some people don't, but perhaps know that they need more of a direction in life. So that's what we're going to go into today.
I'm excited for it. We love goal setting because it gives us our direction and what our plan is. So it's the nice little basis after we find our baseline. Now we can really define what the goal is.
Nice. Good. So I was just going to ask you, what is a goal? That pretty much is a goal, isn't it? The direction that you want to be headed in. But I would say before you get to a goal, you have to think about your values first. So to know what kind of goal that you're going to work towards, defining what your values are, but particularly which values are most important to you. Would you agree?
I agree. Super. 100%. But how do we get there? What are kind of some of the steps that we take to figure out what our values are? Because maybe some people haven't even kind of sat down to think about this. So I know you've got a few lists of resources that you found for defining your values.
Yeah, so I think there are lots of different resources. Certainly you can Google it and you can come up with all sorts of different worksheets. There are lots of different books that we could list in the show notes to help people find resources to help them define goals. But the one way that I saw that I really liked was, like, if you could close your eyes and imagine who you want to be, like, who do you want to be next week? How do you want other people to see you? What's your best self? what is that person? Are they particularly loving? Are they particularly ambitious? Are they particularly work driven or kind? Or I'm probably just coming up with my own now. You could just think of like your best self, or you could go through a few different value areas. So the value areas that I found listed were health and fitness. So what are your values within health and fitness? Your intimate relationships, your friendships and other relationships, in personal development, in work, in spirituality, in community, in recreation, and in safety, security, and sustenance. And so within those different areas, what are your values within those areas? And maybe which of those areas is a big focus for you right now? So I know that within ACT, or acceptance and commitment therapy, they'll often get you to choose 4 of those areas and then draw what they call concentric circles. So a small circle within a slightly larger circle, within an even larger circle, and then draw a cross through, kind of cross-sectioning those circles. This is quite hard to describe. And then with each of those segments, so that those circles are split into quarters, within each of those quarters, labeling them, say maybe 1 in health, 1 in work, 1 in spirituality, and 1 in community. And then put a dot closer to the bullseye of how close you are to living your most valued self within that area. So maybe you've been really focused on your health and fitness recently. So health and fitness, you will be quite close to the bullseye, but maybe you've been neglecting your community because coronavirus. So maybe you'll be much further away from the bullseye. And then also put another dot of where you want to be. And that can help then identify which of those values is your kind of current the most important thing for you to focus on right now. I don't know if I've completely hammed that. Did that make any sense?
It makes a lot of sense to me. And we can also link to the resources for this and give a nice visual description of this for people who are a little bit more visual and everything. Or you can draw this out yourself. And as Joe describes it, I was drawing it in my head and seeing where my little circles would lie. But we can always link a visual to that. But I think it really shows kind of, for people who are less data and numbers driven, it gives more of this visual approach to how close are you to your goals and what does that look like for you right now. And this changes over time. That's the big thing too. Our values and our goals change over time and what our focus is on. So what is it right now? That's what we're focusing on right now. But then also, how is that building towards what future you wants to be living like?
Yeah, and that might be really good. I think it's good for everybody to do, but particularly for people who have no idea of what goals they might want. Some people certainly have very definite goals of, I know that I want to become a better husband or wife, or I know I want to become a more giving person in my community, and they'll have very focused efforts, and they maybe don't need to do that exercise, but that exercise, I guess, would be best for people who don't know what goals to pick at all.
Mm-hmm. It's a really good starting point.
For sure. So then you would clarify your values. So within each of those valued areas, having a think about what within those areas are your values. So, and it can be quite varied. So say with health and fitness, it could be that you want to be more active. Your most valued self is very active. Or it could be dancing and enjoying moving your body. Those are quite different values. Or it could be living in a way that promotes longevity, like you want to be able to get up off the floor and wipe your own backside when you're 70. That's quite different to feeling good in dancing and moving your body. It could be just caring for yourself or being strong. And they're all very different values within health and fitness. Maybe some examples within community. It could be community as in working towards justice for all, maybe along the Black Lives Matter movement, or it could be caring for old people. Totally different values, but within the same kind of value area. So then looking within each value area and finding what your values within that area would be. And as I said, it's not something that you can achieve. A value isn't something you can achieve. It's something that would maybe define you as, I keep repeating myself, but who you are as your kind of best person.
It's what you embody and what you bring to every situation, every action that you are taking, what kind of guides your actions and your choices and your words and the way that you bring yourself into situations.
Yeah, super. And then from any of those values, you can make then a goal. And a goal is something that you can work towards and is something that you can achieve.
Yeah, I think that brings really nicely because you mentioned the concept of I want to be a better spouse or a better friend. Well, what does that really entice? Like, okay, so we say we have this overarching value area of community or relationships, however you're looking at it. And then, okay, what are we honing in on? I want to be a better spouse or a better friend. Okay, now what are some of those actions and goals that we can set to actually, how do we measure that? How do we determine when we've become a better spouse or a better friend? And setting those specific goals within that area is really where we're going to head next.
Perfect. So specific being the first
Mm-hmm.
element of making a SMART goal. So SMART is an acronym for specific, meaningful, adaptive, realistic, and time framed. Some people have different words for the acronym, but those are the ones that I've decided on today. So that's what they're going to be. So as Emily said, the first one is specific. So making sure that your goal isn't fuzzy or vague or wishy-washy, very specific. So not like I'm going to be a better wife. I'm going to be a better wife by communicating my needs with my husband instead of screaming at him every night. It could be instead of being, oh, I'm just going to be more loving, I'm going to make sure I give my other half a hug twice a day, or whatever it might be.
Yeah.
So very specific.
And then we get into it's also measurable. So, like Joe just said, I'm going to give my significant other a hug 2 times a day. We can measure that. Did you do it 1 time a day or 2 times a day? Or maybe you went above and beyond and did 3 times a day. So you have that data to be able to measure it. It's measurable. So, like we talked about in the last episode, how you're taking data and collecting data, is it measurable? Can you track the duration? Can you track the frequency? Can you track the percentage of time or take a photo of it? So we gave you all those examples in the last episode. Now we show you, okay, we've made it measurable.
I said meaningful for the acronym. So I guess also make it meaningful, but actually as a behavior analyst, measurable makes far more sense. But I think
meaningful too, I think goes into our values
totally
part of this as well. But I think you can, and again, many people take SMART goals and you can kind of find the image of it on a Google search and it's going to be different. So in my brain, I immediately jumped to measurable when I went into the M, and Joe goes into meaningful. So if you want to explain how that M comes in for meaningful.
Just making sure that your goal is aligned with your values. You might say you want to be more loving and then say, so that my husband takes the bin out every night. Well, that's not quite the same value, is it? So making sure that they're aligned. Where did your head jump with A then?
I always have attainable.
Ooh, I have adaptive. No,
Yeah.
should have compared notes before we started.
But I think it really shows the difference in how we all approach very similar creating goals and writing them, but we also do it individualized. And so we come at these from very individual approaches and sometimes different, but on the same path towards reaching those specific goals.
Super.
Yeah. So mine, achievable. So setting, and this kind of this also goes into realistic, but setting achievable goals, not setting yourself up to fail, right? So if you're only working out, I use this example all the time, but if you're only working out 10 minutes a week, we're not going to set your first goal of hitting your 150 minutes of moderate exercise that's recommended. That's not going to be achievable. And you're going to end up coming into this kind of negative cycle of, well, I didn't achieve it because I didn't get there this week. And I'm just not able to do that. So setting it really achievable, which is why we collect that baseline data in the beginning to see where you're at, and then making it an achievable, attainable goal.
I would say this is probably one of the biggest things I help clients with. And it sounds ridiculous that people pay me money to give them smaller goals. But I think so often they come to me and they're like, right, I'm paying you money and I've got the motivation and I'm ready for, like, tell me everything I need to do. I'm like, can you eat one new food this week? And I'm like, I was ready for like boot camp and this and that and the other. I'm like, no, we're going to do small steps, because then you'll achieve them and you'll be proud of yourself and you'll be more bought into this idea of, and feel you can trust yourself and you're confident within yourself that you can change your own behavior. Whereas if you come in with goals that aren't achievable, you're going to fail yourself and then feel disappointed and shameful and not trust yourself.
Yeah. You need to contact that reinforcement and that reward of knowing that you can hit the goals that we've set. I do the same thing with my clients. You only drink 10 ounces of water a day? Great. We're going to goal for 15. It's only 5 more ounces. That's it. That's all we're working on this week.
Yeah.
So keeping it really small.
Okay. And then moving on to R, I had realistic. What did you have?
I have realistic as well. It plays into it. So what do you go for when you look at realistic?
Probably trying to tie in all the barriers that come with the behavior. So whether it's the time that somebody has or the finances or other barriers in their life, maybe they don't have a supportive spouse or a supportive family. Maybe their work is a barrier in some way, but looking in their current environment, what's realistic for them. So like for me, it's totally realistic to work out or walk for an hour a day. A brand new mom with a toddler, probably not. Because she's got other stuff in her life. Or maybe for the one client, it might be realistic for her to order healthy pre-made meals because she has those funds, but for another client, they don't have that money. So yeah, realistic in terms of their environment.
Yep. I do the same thing. I have a client that's now just starting to work on tracking her steps, and I said, well, maybe you could, go up and down your flight of stairs in between clients, and just even working on that. Cause we said, okay, let's try and put in 10 minutes a day. And she's like, I just can't, I'm so busy. And we talked about this. I don't have time. And her clients are back to back to back to back. And there's no break in between. And so even that one set of stairs in between clients is not realistic for her. So we're not going to make that a goal because it's just not realistic for her schedule.
Nice.
Alrighty.
And then the last one is timely or time framed. So you could choose to walk 10,000 steps as your goal, but if it's 10,000 steps in the rest of your lifetime, that's not a particularly fantastic goal. Whereas 10,000 steps per day, and that you'll achieve that by the end of this week, for example. So putting a specific time frame of when you're going to achieve this goal by.
Mm-hmm. Yep, that's
I
exactly
sometimes
what I
like to
do.
make them big and scary, because I am certainly someone who can write an essay in one night in my pajamas and turn up to the lecture hall the next day in my pajamas and hand the essay in, because that's my brain and that's how I do things. But if I give myself a big scary goal, it means that I'll start working towards it quicker than the night before.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the time is really helpful for people to have something to look forward towards, and looking towards that kind of next checkpoint or interval for, okay, when are we going to check in? And then also knowing that it's okay if by that time frame you're not quite there yet, because maybe something came up, maybe there's a barrier that we didn't foresee coming into play, and then we just reevaluate and make sure. And maybe we weren't as, realistic with something, or they didn't come out and tell me that they don't have time in between clients and just said, okay, yeah, let's try that, and didn't even come to me and tell me that they don't have that time in between clients, is, that we just reevaluate.
Totally. Super.
Perfect.
Okay, so that is kind of a SMART goal. I guess when looking at SMART goals as well, and I touched this already, looking at benefits of those SMART goals and obstacles. So really highlighting for yourself or for the people that you're setting these SMART goals with, what the obstacles might be, because forewarned is forearmed, but also what the benefits might be, just to really almost kind of hint at the reinforcers that might be coming. So whatever it might be, you're doing this because, remember, you're going to get all these benefits if you do these things.
Mm-hmm. It's a really good reminder. And we kind of talked about before we started recording, kind of why we're doing the goals that why we're working on the goals that we're working on right now, and how they may seem very simple or superficial, but they actually have deeper reasons as to why and more benefits, and they allow us to contact more versions of reinforcement than we maybe have described in the past. So for vegetables, I think, was it your mom or a friend that was like, oh, now I kind of realize that why
Well,
she's
biggest
eating the
fan, my
vegetables.
mum.
Your mom, I love it. So why I'm eating the vegetables is not just to eat vegetables and hit the goal that's recommended every day. There's a deeper reason why, and it's to help my body get the nutrients that it needs to increase the energy levels that I have, because I struggle with energy and fatigue. And so the more energy that I have nutritionally fueled, the more I can help my clients, the more that I can train and coach and give value to people. And that's all coming from me just eating some more spinach, right? So, but it has this deeper reason. So, why are we drinking more water, or why are we trying to incorporate 10 minutes more of exercise, and going deeper into what that why really is? But then it helps when you really don't want to do whatever your goal is, coming back to that reason. It's that whole concept of, well, why are we doing this, and what can it lead us towards in the future that we may not necessarily get access to right now.
Totally. And I think often when we start working towards goals, because we're trying to make ourselves better in some way, we get accidental reinforcers along the way that maybe we didn't expect. So sometimes it's nice to hint at these to clients so they can look out for them, almost like they're on a treasure hunt along the way. But like, maybe start to note like how many times your husband gives you a peck on the cheek as he walks by. Oh, you've noticed that's gone up. Something in your goal to be a more loving spouse is going right then. Or maybe if it's weight loss, like how many minutes did it take you to catch your breath after walking up 4 flights of stairs? Oh, that's cool. Maybe you wear an Apple Watch or a Fitbit. Like, have you noticed your heart rate, like your basal heart rate has gone down? Well, that's cool. And often use the example client of like, oh, I once worked with someone who also noticed this. Of course, it's entirely fictional, but it makes it less awkward to point it out on them specifically, and they'll go, oh yeah, I've noticed that too, and then they kind of buy into it more. So together with your SMART goals, having a very specific goal, but then maybe thinking about all the other nice connected benefits that go with it. Okay,
yeah. Perfect.
So I think throughout this we've given loads of examples of values and their related goals. When you have your values and you have your goals, there's something that I really like called the choice point model. And this isn't as fancy as it sounds. Essentially, if you just think of a crossroads, so you're driving along the road of life, and at some point you hit a choice. And that's that choice whether you are about to scream at your spouse, or you're standing in front of the fridge about to choose what to eat, or you're about to stay in bed and not do the workout, or get out and do the workout. And that is your choice point. Do you want to take the right-hand road that moves you towards your value and towards that most kind of the life that you really want to live, the person you want to be? Or do you want to take the left-hand fork and move away from that? And it's a choice. And you can, like, it's totally fine to go on the left-hand fork if that's what you want to do right now, because it is a choice. You aren't governed by any kind of devils in your brain, or nobody makes that choice for you. But you have that kind of choice point, and at that point you get to choose, am I going to move towards my higher self or move away from it? Am I going to move myself towards my goals, my values, or am I going to take myself away from it? And I really like that, because often it makes clients just stop, and it makes me stop and think, yeah, I don't really want to move away from my goals. I've been working so hard towards them. I want to keep moving towards them. I'm going to make the right choice.
It's a hard skill to learn, though. It's really hard. It's that little, I say there's this like little blip of time for anyone watching this when we have the video of it. There's this little sliver of time for you to stop and think about that choice, because we make so many choices impulsively and quickly, and we're just going through not mindfully. And so stopping and looking at that choice of saying, okay, I can either do this towards my goals or this away from my goals. It's hard though. So it takes practice.
Yeah. And this will be another podcast, but looking at how to schedule your your biggest choices. So knowing that towards the end of the day, you will start to get decision fatigue. And this is well researched of the more choices you have to make in a day, the less likely you are to make good choices towards the end of a day because you hit decision fatigue. So trying to make sure that you get those big, important decisions in when you're fresh, maybe earlier in the day for some people, maybe after a big meal for other people, whatever it might be. But hitting that choice point model at a time that you know you'll be most value focused.
Yeah, perfect.
And then I guess at some point you need to reassess those values and goals. Are they still true for you? Maybe when I was younger, it was for me to be more fun, more friendship driven, whereas nowadays I'm more kind of close relationship driven, work driven, goal driven, in terms of work rather than, let's face it, going out partying.
Yeah, it changes. And I mean, if you look at yourself 5 years ago, 10 years ago, you had different goals, different values, different things that were taking a priority in your life at that point in time. And it's not faulting yourself for that, but recognizing that you change and recognizing now that what you're working on right now may not always be the value or the goal that you have later on. And some values stay true and hold true throughout everything, and others change. And that's okay. That's how we're growing and evolving.
Absolutely. Okay, so I think we will put up a worksheet or two about all the things that I've wonderfully, terribly described, of how to define your values and where you are with your values on that bullseye I was trying to describe. So we'll put those up on the Mighty Network.
Yes.
But if you're not part of the Mighty Network, please get in touch and let us know that you want to be part of it, or you can email us and we'll email you the worksheet. So our email address is behaveyourselfpod@gmail.com. You can find Emily at emily.a.mcrae, or you can find me at The Behavior Lady, and behavior spelt with a U, on Instagram. You can also find our Instagram, Behave Yourself Pod. Is that our handle on Instagram?
Yeah.
So please find us there, and get in touch.
Yeah, we'd love to hear from you guys. If you have questions, if you have topics that you want to hear about or you want more expansion or clarity on, please feel free to reach out on any of those platforms. We would love to hear from you. Any comments, leave a review. We would love that. And just share this with anyone that you know that could be benefited by this podcast, because we want to help as many people as we can set small goals that are valuable and reach them.
Super. Next week, we're going to do a get to know yourself. So I think we're going to have a bumper week of 2 podcasts, one of getting to know Emily and one of getting to know me, which has been a request from some of the listeners, which is really nice that you want to get to know us. Yeah. So thank you. So that's next week. And yeah, as I said, we'll release both of those podcasts. Before we go, a quick disclaimer: we are both behavior analysts and qualified in our respective fields, but we're not your behavior analysts. And this podcast is for education and information sharing only and shouldn't be taken as personal, medical, or behavioral advice or services.
Wonderful. We will see you guys next week when you get to know us a little bit more.
Bye.